a safe space for St. Louis to learn about soccer. This is Soccer 101 with Michelle Smallman and Moon Valjean.
It's Soccer 101, the safe space for St. Louis to learn about soccer. I'm Michelle Smallman alongside Moon Valjean, of course, of the Rizzuto Show on 105.7 The Point of Riz Show fame. And Moon, as this podcast has evolved, it started out as a bit of an education platform for new soccer fans in St. Louis, but we're just full-blown soccer fans at this point with an educational lean.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it covered some basic rules if you want to go back and do that. And of course, we'll cover rules and different questions about rules as they come at us or as they get exposed in some of these matches, which are coming up. Happy freaking February, by the way.
Yes.
We are weeks away. This is the month that we have an MLS team in St. Louis starting in the MLS. Yes, the first game is away in February, but then we have our home opener on March 4th. And like you said, we're just fans. We're city fans. We're soccer fans. This is a fan podcast made by fans. Yes, we're connected to the team. You're very, very connected to the team. We'll get into that later. But man, we're just here to spread the love and keep your questions coming.
Ask soccer101@gmail.com.
Keep the questions coming, but we're just here to dump facts and fun and experiences from us and from other fans here in St. Louis, now rocking the MLS badge, the MLS fandom. So everything kicks off, February 25th. St. Louis is in Austin. So that is our first match, our first city match. And that is, by the way, on Apple TV for free.
Great news.
I know that you've seen some of the channel release and all that. And the Apple TV MLS Season Pass app is now available. And that just hit, I guess, this last week. So all the matches are going to be on that MLS Season Pass. But some of these are going to be free matches. So the very first game, St. Louis at Austin, is free on Apple TV. And then our Portland match on the 11th at Providence Park is also on Apple TV free. And then the rest of them that I'm reading are on the MLS Season Pass. So you can watch it. Any plans on coming to some home matches, Michelle?
Oh, yes, Moon. I am looking at the schedule. I know that I'm coming home in April for another work event. So I'm going to try and coordinate a game while I'm home. I'll be there for several games. I am considering flying home for the home opener. I just am going to be racking up a lot of miles with American Airlines is going to get to know me pretty well.
In April, we have 3 home matches on the 1st, April Fool's Day, on the 15th, and on the 29th. It's Minnesota, Cincinnati, and Portland. All should be good matches, all available on MLS Season Pass on Apple TV. I'm stoked. I just had a talk. I know this is a little bit of a sneak peek. I just had a talk with the key sponsor with City, and that is Together Credit Union. And some of the stuff that they are doing experience-wise down there is so freaking incredible. We've been learning about our team, about St. Louis City SC, and the ownership, and really what everything means. Remember on a previous episode, we were talking about what they did down at the stadium, just every little thing connecting to St. Louis history and the history within that community.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, that location and everything. It is no coincidence that they partnered with Together Credit Union, because Together Credit Union has like that 80-year history here. This is a huge organization that is super involved in the community. So I think that's what City was really looking at with Together Credit Union and making them like the big sponsors that they are down there. And they are connecting some community things. Obviously, we've talked about the debit card and all the stuff that gets you, the express entry and all that. They're about to do a credit card now that has perks as well. But man, I'm telling you, this is not just like a sponsor shout out. They do not sponsor this podcast. I am telling you that some of the stuff that they are doing is so freaking sweet. So I can't wait to see what else happens down there.
And you're right. Shout out to them for being one of the early partners with City. So many businesses in St. Louis have jumped on board with what City is doing, but Together the Credit Union has been there from the very beginning, and I can't wait to see what you guys put out.
We got a good show today. We're going to keep it short and sweet. There is a little bit of education that we're going to throw in here, and this is not an education for soccer newbies. This is an education for everybody, because I actually learned a few things, because there's been a lot of changes in the substitutions. So do you want to get into our specific emailer's question?
I would love to. So one more time, you can always shoot us a note, comments, feedback, questions you might have about City, about MLS, about soccer in general. The email address is asksoccer101@gmail.com. And this one, Moon, comes from Michael Lee. He says, "Hi guys, please explain substitutions. When are they allowed? Are there limits on substitutions? And what else do I need to know about them?
A great question, especially because a lot of things have changed even in the recent years. So originally, of course, a soccer game has 90 minutes, and originally there were no substitutions. For decades upon decades upon decades, you were not allowed a substitution unless a player didn't show up and you had to replace him before the whistle. It wasn't until 1958 that substitutions were actually legally added to the laws of the game. Isn't that crazy? 1958.
You would think that that would have happened many, many years ago.
Right. I'm especially knowing like even like the World Cup history,
Yeah.
The World Cup was started in like the 30s or whatever. No substitutions were allowed in the World Cup finals until 1970. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
So at that point, teams were only allowed one sub per game until 1988, when the number actually increased to 2 with 5 options on the bench. So they were only allowed to carry 5 substitutions and only allowed 1 substitution per game until 1988 when they jumped it to 2. Get this. I always thought I remembered that there were 3 substitutions. 3 substitutions did not come along until afterwards. Get this. In 1994, the number was increased to 2 plus 1 in only cases of injured goalkeepers. So you still had 2 subs or a third if your goalie was injured. And that only lasted for a year. So they just made it 3 subs in 1995. So that wasn't until 1995. I don't know where my memory was, but I always thought it was 3. I guess it was 2 when we were kids.
Which is weird because if you would have asked me what was it when we were kids, I would have said 3 as well.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is they didn't add a number of substitutions that you were allowed to choose from until right around that time too. They jacked it up to 7. So until then it was only 5 as well. So these are much smaller rosters than we're used to seeing. You're used to seeing basically 1.5, 2 damn teams out there. You know what I mean? It just seems like there's a lot of guys in the pennies on the benches these days. So in the 21st century, the only changes that really came in 2016, they trialed 4 substitutions in cases where the game went to extra time. So as of 2020, you are now allowed 5 substitutions with an additional one in extra time in certain competitions, so not all of them, and you have 3 windows of opportunities to make those substitutions. Those are wild changes, and I remember not being ready for that and watching this last World Cup and watching a couple tournaments recently in different leagues and seeing a 4th and a 5th substitution, and it freaked me out. It's kind of weird. I mean, as like a strategist and as somebody that like studies the game and is playing FIFA all the time, playing the video games, those 3 subs, man, you got to be really tactical about it. That really changes the game altogether, don't you think?
It does. And now are you saying that you do not prefer the new rules, the new substitution rules?
I haven't adapted yet. I keep forgetting. So I understand changing the game and evolving and all that kind of stuff. I wonder how coaches feel. I'm really curious to actually ask if we can start interviewing some more managers and coaches. I want to know what their pros and cons are on it.
Yeah, because when you think about going to extra time and having those subs, part of me thinks, well, isn't that half of the beauty of going to extra times? It's a battle of attrition. Who is least gassed? Which team is going to be able to survive, right? But then on the other hand, as a consumer, sometimes I'm like, give me some fresh legs. Like, let's insert some more energy into this game with some fresh players. So I don't know how you feel about that.
I don't know. And it also depends on if we're talking about league games versus tournament games. If we're talking about tournament games that might go into overtimes and things, I think the rules should clearly be different. I think that adding more periods of play should add more substitutions. I'm down with that. That actually totally makes sense. But for like the Premier League that just goes 90 minutes with the extra time, and it's a table, a points and table type league. I don't know. So get this. So speaking of the English Premier League, they actually did decide to go back to the maximum of 3 substitutions. But then as of March last year, they said, okay, we'll do 5 for the 2022-2023 Premier League season. So even they are kind of like kicking it back and forth. I would play the game differently if I knew I was going to be subbed. That's half the team, 5 subs. Come on, man.
Yeah, it really is. And imagine if you're a sub too on the sideline and you're thinking, okay, now that there's maybe more of an opportunity for me to get in this game, I need to be that much sharper and that much more ready to go.
This is not just going to change the leagues and the approach to teams, but this is going to change the approach to players and their careers.
Yeah, which is really cool. I also love from the the coaching and managing perspective, thinking about making those adjustments. You're watching the game unfold and you have those opportunities to make those in-game adjustments that could be the difference in the game. And it's a risk when you're going to decide when and who to pull out. And are you better at sensing the moment and realizing what your team needs to beat the opposition?
Now you can probably be working on teaching and employing more throughout training and throughout a match. It's going to be really interesting to see how this evolves the game. And the game's always evolving. You hear all these old players that are now broadcasters talking about how fast the game has become or how big the game has become. I remember I was a small guy. I'm only like 5'7", 5'8". So soccer was my sport. It was supposed to be in the 80s. And then when we got to the 90s and I was playing high school, I remember my dad was like, these kids are enormous. This has become like a big boy sport, like a big person sport. And I remember our football program at Limburg was awful at the time. And we were having football players that were like exquisite athletes go out for soccer because all of a sudden it was a big, fast man sport. So this is going to change the whole feel of it, which is exciting. I think it's good.
Isn't it funny how we talk about that in almost every sport now, how the evolution has been younger, bigger, stronger, faster? I mean, even in hockey, I was just filling in on the fast lane and we were having that conversation about how the Blues won the Stanley Cup in 2019, being that unrelenting physical team. And now the game has evolved towards the fast players, the skill players. And it's up to you to build your team to adapt to the way that the game is playing. Either that or come up with the perfect counter to be able to stifle the way that the game is trending. And that's what we're going to see in soccer too. And now, Moon, they have their bodies down to a science, what they put in, how they recover, the stretching, the protein, the hyperbaric oxygen chambers, the cryo. I mean, they take care of their bodies. That's part of the full-time job, is the way that you build your body to be able to compete and recover on a day-to-day basis. It's actually really, really fascinating. And I would love to at some point talk to an athlete or maybe someone from the training staff and talk about what that looks like for soccer, because obviously the way that they're conditioned and the way that they work out is totally different than what a baseball player would do or a football player would do. And I wonder how that's evolved for soccer players over the years as well, the way that they maintain themselves physically.
I think this substitution rule actually is going to play into that, because these guys have gotten bigger, they've gotten faster. But what have we done? We've made them play 3 times as many games as they used to have to play, which of course is then going to increase injuries. It's going to increase the intensity of some of the injuries. So I think the substitution stuff is actually, I think it's almost like a course correction. It's like they're trying to kind of steer back where they can rest a lot of these guys, and the coaches aren't so dependent on the top 11 or top 14 guys that they have. I wonder how this is going to affect yellow cards and red cards. If you got a key player and you're in a tournament that you cannot lose this guy, and he's on a yellow and he's just kind of he's gassed, and he has a higher chance of maybe making a goof on some sort of play where he may get yellowed again and out of the match and suspended for the next match, right? Mm-hmm. You're probably going to sub that guy out. Now,
if I'm the coach, I'm thinking, he's gassed and that makes him vulnerable to be undisciplined. And so I'm going to protect the player and protect myself as a team and get him out of that situation.
Right. So you put all this emphasis, all this weight on that player in this moment rather than in the particular match in that moment and the tactics that you've tried to put forward in the game. Now it's much easier. You have an extra 2 subs. Now you're like, oh yeah, get that guy out. Get him out. I hope that it actually allows the coaches the opportunity to stay within the tactics and stay within the strategies when they're trying to avoid things like this, an injury for a player or an additional yellow card or red card for a player. So I bet you there's 100 different things that this is going to change that we haven't even seen yet that we'll start talking about in the next couple of years. Each league obviously is doing slightly different things per usual when they implement new rules, but this is the standard as they say for now.
You know what's really cool, and that just popped into my head, is that we're going to be actually talking about game results this month. Like you just said, I can't wait to see how this impacts the game. We're going to be talking about it in 24 days. It's February 1st that we're recording this. In 24 days, we're going to be talking about actual soccer games with a team in St. Louis.
I am so frigging excited. Yeah, it looks like the MLS adopted the maximum of 5 substitutions with 3 different opportunities, like we mentioned, in 2021. By the way, the 3 opportunities, those are 3 mid-game. That excludes halftime. You can change at halftime and not use one of your 3 permitted times. Does that make sense?
Yes, and that's an important note to add.
Yeah. So I mean, you got more than just the 3. That's 3 mid-game when the ball is stopped, and you ask the referee for permission, and they sub them right there.
There's a lot of challenges that the team still has to overcome, or that I should rephrase that they have been working through, because when you build something from scratch, you are already at a bit of a disadvantage because a lot of your opposition has been together for years. They might have a set identity, a set culture. You're building all of that from the ground up on the fly. And I was on the fast lane this week, as I mentioned earlier, and Jamie Rivers and I got the opportunity to speak to City's head coach, Bradley Carnell. And we spoke to him about what the preseason has been like, what he's learned about his team, and how they've been able to develop that chemistry in such a short period of time.
Our guy, our head coach for St. Louis City SC, Bradley Carnell. Coach, how we doing today?
Very well, and you, Jamie. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a great preseason so far, and it's great to chat to you guys.
Yeah, so let's dive into that. 4-0 preseason win over Inter Miami. I mean, that's a pretty big win, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's maybe a little bit skewed because we go 120 minutes. Yeah, 2 groups, we put out 60 minutes each. So we have designated progressions for the players, and you know, we've been hard at work for a couple of days now, nearly 2 weeks. So just trying to get things going along nicely. But, yeah, I mean, while we don't want to look at the scoreline too much, and I'd rather look at the way we play and the type of sort of relationships we're building on the field. For me, it was more about just the first camp, getting to know each other, getting to be around each other almost 24/7, to live, breathe, and eat soccer. And I thought the Camp 1 was really successful with that, and even a good game against the Philadelphia Union, who were, you know, the MLS finalists, cup finalists last season. So overall, I feel we've taken a good stride forward as a group, and looking forward to a couple of days in market now, and then head out to California, just in the beginning of February.
Yeah, Coach, you have a lot of challenges. Not only are you building this team from the ground up, but with that comes building chemistry with a group. So tell us what you've learned about this group, about your team during the preseason.
Yeah, so obviously nice to be chatting to you, Michelle. So obviously we're talking about grit and determination, and we're trying to build a style of play and trying to build a soccer identity within the city of St. Louis. Now, we're trying to connect the dots with the history and the platforms that this city's provided previously, and you know, through a certain style and a game model and a work ethic, and just a level of respect, you know, that the game deserves in this day and age. We're just trying to put all pieces of the puzzle together. And one thing that I've learned is that, you know, we want to be a team who works hard. We want to be a team who competes till the very end. So we adopt and apply these methods in trainings. Very competitive nature. Everything we do means something. So yeah, we've seen this over the last two games. You know, there might be preseason games, but we had to come back from behind twice against Philadelphia. We got out the blocks very early on against Inter Miami, and we didn't take our foot off the gas pedal. So I see a hunger, I see a bit of desire, but you know, this is early in preseason. Everyone's at different stages of their preseason, so we don't want to read too much into it, and we'd rather just keep focusing on ourselves.
Bradley Carnell, head coach of St. Louis City. We're chatting with him for a few minutes here. Bradley, you talk about style of play, style of player. What, for you, ideally, what does a St. Louis City SC player encompass? What are you looking for out of your players? If you have 2 guys standing side by side, what can one guy do to impress you more than the other guy?
one who thinks quicker than the other guy. one who's physically gifted over the other guy, and one who's got a plan ahead and is always a bit proactive in his thoughts and his movements. And obviously we're looking for talented soccer players, but we believe not just the talented soccer players, the best criteria for that. We're wanting to, you know, find a player who can sort of supply multiple roles within the field of play. So we have a couple of all-rounders in the team that if we need them at an outside back or a 6 or a 10, like different positions on the field, we can, you know, plug and play. And this is the beauty of the system. It's almost a plug and play based on principles. So we've done a lot of scouting through the last year, I would say, the last 12 months, to find guys who fit the style of play. So, and a couple of all-rounders there. So Lutz, John Hackworth, myself, we've done really, I think in my opinion, we've acquired guys already last year, and credits and grateful for the ownership group to allow us that bit of flexibility and freedom to get guys here in market early on. The European guys, 7 of them joined us last year, June, July, August, and they've been growing within our system and style of play. So even a Roman Berkey at 31 can still, apply a new phase. Soccer doesn't stop at 31, or experiences at Dortmund don't end there. So we're trying to get guys to open up, to feel a little bit of accountability, a little bit of ownership of what we are trying to do here, and get guys to buy in and get an appetite for what we are doing. So, yeah, we're incredibly excited, and it's good to have the ball rolling now because we can slowly see it coming together.
Well, Coach, I don't know if you know this about me, but while I played in the NHL, I played almost every single position available. I'm a hard worker. I'm good in the locker room. I might have a bit of an aggression problem, though, but I think we can work with that.
We like this because we always, I like the aggression part because that's something you can never turn up the volume. To get somebody to be more aggressive is a difficult thing to teach and coach, but you can always turn down the volume, So I'd rather have good starting points with good aggression, and then we can start turning down your volume. So that's great, Jenny.
And Coach, we know that Jamie is the aggressive guy, and you can always call him if you need him. But one thing that I think is going to be so fun about this season is that St. Louis is going to get to learn about these players. They're going to identify who their guys are. Each fan is going to have somebody that they love to watch. So I need you to give us a bit of a scouting report. You mentioned Berkey, Nilsson. I know that there's a lot of veteran guys that are on the team, but who's emerged as a leader and who's emerged as Mr. Personality? Who are fans going to want to look to as one of the leaders and one of the people that is going to be entertaining?
Yeah, listen, I think we have different players for different moments in the game. So, you look at the back, you have a seasoned veteran like Tim Parker, Josh Yarrow, Kyle Hebert. But a guy like Tim Parker, you could see from day one, obviously I've worked with him before during my times at the New York Red Bulls. He's a guy itching to get back into this type of playing style. So he's taken on a leadership role. We spoke about Joachim Nielsen, who hasn't been part of our group that much because he's just had a hard time with a bit of a knee injury. So we value his leadership, and even when he's not on the field of play, you can just kind of see the kind of mentor that he is to the younger players as well. So we have some good characters. Indy Vasilev is always. I learned that he's a great singer on preseason camp. So Indy Vasilev has got a great voice and seems to enjoy the stage. So even on the soccer field, that's our stage, and he feels very comfortable there. We've thrown him in a couple of positions. Thomas Ostrak is a guy just smiling all the time. He's a very approachable guy, very talented individual, very creative. And then you have Klaus, right? So Klaus up front. He's almost like the big teddy bear. He gives the best hugs in the team. Like he just wants to embrace everybody and just get everybody on board and feel the excitement of this project. So yeah, we have a very broad group, in terms of what they bring to the table. But and that's the beauty of it, to try and piece it all together and form something formidable. So yeah, it's an enjoyable project.
Okay, we have to go back to the singing. I need to know what Vasilev sang and how you learned that he was a good singer.
Good question. I know John Gasparoni might be on the line. He could, I'm terrible with names of songs, but I can't remember.
Well, that's all right. Those guys are always good for your locker room.
Yeah.
It's always the glue guys. They keep everybody happy and keep it light in there. Coach, one of the things here, the struggles, or not the struggles, one of the obstacles for an expansion team is, look, you got to go get your guys. You got to build your team. You got to create this culture, this foundation. How important is a transfer window for an expansion club?
Yeah, obviously it is, right? But we did our homework, or we did the work 6 months ago, 12 months ago. So we were starting to plan this thing a lot longer than this transfer window that's upon us now. So with roster spots being filled, we've signed homegrown in Caden Glover. We've signed, a position that we needed to fill in Jabulo Blom from South Africa as well. So, we've been very strategic in our market and positional profiles as well. So I think that, business is just about done for this window. We might have something up our sleeve come middle of the year.
And finally, Coach, last thing for me, tomorrow's February 1st. We're getting so close to the first game. What's the vibe like around the club right now, knowing that you're about ready to kick things off for the inaugural season?
Yeah, it seems that, the ball is rolling, and we treated this group, whether it was City 2 and 7 pros from Europe last year, we treated this like the MLS team. So for us, it's just another day of work. For us, it's just another step towards the right direction. We've had a great experience to close out the year against Leverkusen last year. So that was a nice little sort of rehearsal for the big one, obviously on the 4th of March against Charlotte. But prior to that, we got the away opener against Austin. So, but I feel this group is primed. This group's getting ready. They feel like they've been working together for a lot longer than than just this January window or this preseason Camp 1 exists to, or sort of, it just feels like a solid group straight away.
Well, Coach, good luck the rest of the way here. We're excited to see everything continue to progress, and we appreciate you coming on here today and hope you'll join us again sometime.
Thank you very much, Jamie, Michelle. Thank you.
All right, thank you again. That was Bradley Carnell, head coach of your St. Louis City SC.
And Moon, that was my conversation with City head coach Bradley Carnell on the Fast Lane this week. And wasn't it great to hear from Coach about how they have accelerated the chemistry building experience on this team in such a small amount of time?
Yeah, I love that stuff. And that's one of the things that I think everybody that's a fan here is worried about is the chemistry. You're building a brand new team. You're building everybody. You're trying to find out, who does what, who works well with this type of guy. And that chemistry stuff matters. Listen, it's in the games. If you're playing FIFA, it's in the games for a reason. You're trying to get that chemistry up so that team works well together on the pitch under pressure. That's a big deal. And I love hearing about that stuff from the coach himself.
And one more thing, Moon, that I loved hearing from Coach is about the players' personalities, because we have our guys, right? When we watch St. Louis sports, you have your favorite Blues player or your favorite Cardinals player. I certainly have my favorite players as well. How cool is it that all of us collectively are going to be able to pick out who our guys are at the same time this year? We're all starting from scratch. Yeah, that is pretty fun. Yeah, we got a ton of, there's a million blank jerseys out there. I can't wait to start seeing like, a lot of Berkey jerseys out here. Yeah. Hey, all right. Just like it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting for everybody because we're all just like kids in like a brand new candy store. Then the doors open and we all just rush in, Oh, absolutely. And what a cool opportunity for the players too, for them to be able to show their personalities and have, you might not be the best player on the team, but because we are starting from scratch, you're going to be able to maybe become a fan favorite in different ways, which I think is really cool. Well, thank you again to Coach Bradley Carnell for joining us on the Fast Lane this week. We were so pleased to let you hear that conversation. And Moon and I will be back again next week as we get closer and closer to City's 2023 season debut.
Heck yeah, it's going to be exciting. And thanks to the Fast Lane for letting us use that audio. And until next week, go!